Good evening and welcome. We'll call the meeting of the Cleveland County Board of Education for Monday, November 13th to order. And just a quick order of reporting, the board did meet in closed session at 5:15 earlier this evening to discuss a confidential personnel matter and get an update from our attorney. So first on the list, we have Reverend Melvin Clark for our invocation. Reverend?
I want to know. I want for you.
We greet you in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. We thank you, the board, for allowing us to come and participate. We bring you greetings on behalf of Washington Missionary Baptist Church, Ebenezer Missionary Association. It's 43 churches and more than 8,000 members. We are glad to be here tonight. If you would just bow with us as we go to the Lord in prayer. Father, tonight we thank you for who you are. God, in your grace and your mercy that thought it not robbery to extend our lives. If it had not been for you, God, it is certain we wouldn't be here. Tonight, God, we pray blessings over our schools. God, and every student in our schools. God, every teacher. God, every faculty member. God, every laborer in the system. God, we pray for every bus driver. God, everybody that's associated with our great school board and our great schools of Cleveland County, God, we pray that you just put your hands on us. Tonight, God, we pray for our community. God, that we will continue to grow together, God, and unite with one another, God, to make a better county. God, tonight I pray that we become one with one objective, one goal, God. And that goal of our school system is to advance our students. God, no matter how old or how young, God, that we can advance them to the place, God, that they will become outstanding citizens. I pray tonight, God, over all the decisions that will be made that shape the lives of our children. God, that their journey through life from these decisions will become stronger people. God, more focused, more loving one to another. God, that we break down the boundaries that have separated us. Tonight, God, I pray for our leadership team. God, that what you give them in their hearts and in their souls and in their minds, oh God, will impact change to our county. God, that you will be pleased with every effort we make to promote the growth of our children. God, it is about our children and nothing less, God, and nothing more. So God, I pray now that as a body, we could turn our attention toward them, God, to make them the greatest beings that there could ever be. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend. Mr. Fitch, if you'd lead the pledge.
Yeah, let us stand. Salute, pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, I'd like to call on David Pless for recognition.
Dr. Fisher, members of the board, thanks for giving me the opportunity to recognize an outstanding achievement of a group of our student athletes. Tonight we have the 3A state champion Kings Mountain High School volleyball team with us. Mountaineers defeated Orange High School for a state championship, finished the season with a record of 33 wins and 1 loss. I got to attend the state championship game in Raleigh, and what a great environment it was at Reynolds Coliseum. Our girls dominated the first game and was up, I believe, 23-18 or 19 in the second game and lost. And then they lost the third game. Not gonna lie, I got a little bit nervous. However, down 2-1, our girls came back and won the fourth game and clinched the title in the fifth game. And you know, 20 years from now, when I think of this team, I will remember the perseverance that they showed coming back from being down and winning that fifth set. I'd like to ask head coach Heather Paysauer to come up, introduce the players, and say a few words about the team.
Kings Mountain overall record was 34-1 and won 95 out of the 101 sets we played this season. Yes, we had one loss, and many people would think that tarnished our record. Our team saw it differently. That loss helped us get ready for the state championship game. Without it, we would have finished the season the way we started. I've had successful teams before, but this team was different because of the focus, drive, and everyone's willingness to do what was best for the team. The coaching staff is honored to have coached this group. At this time, I want to introduce to you the 2023 3A NCHSAA State Championship team. Jesse Osmore. And some are not here tonight. Camden Pacehour, Madison Broom, Alexa Jones, Kinsley Morris, Ava Tipton, Miracle Davis, Maylee Sangaila, Abigail Hedgepath, London Brown, Ruby Osborne, Sarah Bouchard, and Mary Grace Hogue. Coaches are Heather Pacehour, Lindsay Ellis, Mandy Hamrick, Michael Cogdell, and Lindsay Deaver.
All right, next we have Miss Laura Beaver with a presentation about PALS.
Hi, good evening, Chairman Queen and Board of Education. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity tonight to update you on some of the most recent PALS partnerships that we've had this year. First, let me just reiterate to the public that PALS is an initiative that Cleveland County Schools created to raise the literacy rates of Cleveland County. If you notice, their strategic plan that has been voted on by our board is that all third grade students will meet or exceed grade level expectations by 2030. Well, in order to do this, we rely on not only our school staff and all the people that work and support our students, but we also rely on families and community members. And so tonight I would like to highlight two very recent partnerships between PALS and our local Rotary clubs. Rotary members are people who believe in shared responsibilities to take action that will create lasting change, especially within their community. The two clubs have definitely taken action, united much of their resources, and have made an impact on the lives of our students. To start, I want to talk to you about the Shelby Breakfast Rotary. Last year, Shira Miller and Ruth Huffsettler from Shelby Breakfast Rotary met with a group of us here at the district office to discuss the possibility of hosting a back-to-school bash for the elementary students of Cleveland County. In the past, they've provided school supplies, but this year they wanted to do something different and partner with our PALS initiative and give each student 5 high-quality stories to start out their school year. So after much discussion and many meetings, the back-to-school book bash was planned for the evening of July 27th. We're thrilled to say that over 20 community organizations and businesses prepared materials and free resources to provide to the families that attended. Our local law enforcement agencies and fire department provided emergency vehicles to not only allow the families to explore their unique equipment, but also to maintain safety for the children, since we're not allowed to close our street. And so that was very important that we maintain that safety. We had over 50 Shelby Breakfast Rotarians and Cleveland County Schools employees to volunteer to work that evening. Families had a blast with the Dunkin' booth, and there are probably some people in here that were dunked numerous times that evening. They received free hot dog dinners that were made from our wonderful child nutrition team, and many of them received free book bags from our social services department. I'm wanting to say almost 500 were given away that day. Families were entertained not only by real dogs with a police department dog demonstration, but also with Clifford's Army Rescue mascot. And Cleveland Community College Yeti not only shared moments with the little ones, he also spent a little quality time with our fearless leader. Throughout the evening, we had local musicians. Actually, 3 of them performed, and they were all graduates from Shelby High School, and they entertained the families throughout that event. It's estimated that this event brought in over 1,000 people. All families had a wonderful time, but the most important reason for hosting this event was to give away books to the pre-K through grade 5 students that were in attendance. 350 drawstring bags filled with 5 free books were given away. Families were also provided with a flyer that included information about at-home activities that can support literacy skills at home that are provided by our North Carolina Department of Education. Now, our next Rotary is called Shelby Rotary, and the only difference with them is that they meet at lunchtime. And they have, of course, different members. But early this year, Jack Weller and Colette Devaney from the Shelby Rotary contacted our elementary department to partner once again with our PALS initiative. And since our district has adopted Wit and Wisdom as part of our English Language Arts curriculum, we thought it would be a great opportunity for them to combine their efforts and support the knowledge building and skills being taught in class. This organization has often supported our 3rd grade students. In the past, they used to give away dictionaries to them. And so it's fitting that they only continue to support our district's goal, which I mentioned earlier, that was in relationship to our 3rd grade students being on grade level by 2030. Most of our 3rd grade students at the time of this planned event would be in the midst of the 2nd module of Wit and Wisdom, or what's a unit that is focused on outer space. So that became the mission of this event. From my understanding, Jack and Colette worked diligently to secure members to accept the mission of venturing out into our schools and reading to students, and that can be a little scary if you're not normally in the school system. Through the days and weeks between October 24th and November 3rd, 16 brave Rotarians traveled through space and time to read to 3rd grade students at our 15 elementary schools. To support their journey, they brought with them books related to space exploration. I'm pleased to say that each Rotarian accomplished this mission successfully and returned home with even more stories to tell. Through their great effort, over 1,000 3rd grade students explored a tale or two about space to pique their interest and continue to build their knowledge. They also learned a little bit about each one of those Rotarians as well. Here are the 5 stories that students were able to view and then select one of them to take home. We've encouraged our teachers to host trade days now in the coming months so that students can trade books and take each one home to read a different adventure with their families. Our elementary department supported this mission by creating a handout for families to support their students while reading the book at home. The questions on the handout align with the ELA standards that are being taught through the outer space module. We're very thankful for both of the Rotary clubs and their continued support as partners like these 2 organizations who are willing to align their efforts with our district's goals. That is what we need to ensure that each student will meet their literacy success. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beaver. And thank you to the Shelby Breakfast and Shelby Rotaries for the hard work they put in to help that initiative. Next, we have Ms. Margot Plonk from Albemarle.
Good evening, how are you? I am here to present a certificate to Dr. Fisher for $9,000. It is in advance of Giving Tuesday. We're going to be delivering certificates for $1,000 for all of the Kings Mountain District schools, and we'll be delivering those in person to them. But I just wanted to let you all know that we appreciate what you're doing, and we're happy to be in the community.
You're welcome to come back anytime. Thank you.
We got 20-something more schools.
And before moving on to our agenda, the Board of Education wants to express its sympathy to the family of Adam Floyd. Adam was a teacher at Turning Point Academy and was a valued member of our school community and holds a special place in the hearts of our district. Our prayers are with the Floyd family as well as the students and staff at Turning Point Academy. Mr. Floyd passed away a couple of weeks ago, I believe. So, moving along, next we have adoption of the agenda. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to adopt.
I heard Mr. Fitch and Mr. Bridges for a second. Any questions or discussion on the agenda? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. Next is approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes. One is the October 9th closed session student hearing and the October 9th business session. What's the pleasure of the board? Motion by Mr. Bridges to adopt both.
Second.
Is that you, Mr. Fitch? Any questions or discussion on the minutes? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. And that carries 9-0. Moving on to committee reports, Mr. Shores, Finance and Personnel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Finance Committee met, and Mr. McDaniel shared that the auditor will report to the committee at their next meeting regarding the recent audit of the 2022-2023 financial statements. Mr. McDaniel gave a thorough update of last year's budget. Then he shared a draft budget resolution for 2023-24 and reviewed each funding source and current appropriation. The final resolution is on for tonight's agenda. The committee discussed the teacher supplement and the plan to increase the local supplement. Specifically, the recommendation is to move the local teacher supplement from 7.75% to 9.25%, which according to our MOU with the county commissioners, the county pays 3% and the school system pays 6.25%. This will go into effect in November of 2023. The proposed supplement increase is on the agenda for the board's approval for tonight. Dr. Fisher and Donna Piercy shared ESSER update. Mrs. Piercy has done a great job managing these funds for the district. ESSER 1 and ESSER 2s are complete, and ESSER 3 is in the process of being used. ESSER money must be used by September 2024. Dr. Fisher shared that we had received an invoice for school nurses. The invoice was for $1,084,444.96, which is a significant increase from the previous year. There is an expense on the invoice that staff had questioned, and more information is needed prior to paying. Discussion occurred, and discussion was made for Dr. Fisher to get a new invoice for this. The committee agreed that a corrected invoice was needed prior to the board taking any action. As a side note, the invoice has been revisited and is on tonight's agenda. With no new business, went into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A6 to discuss personnel matter. After the closed session, the meeting was adjourned. The next Finance and Personnel Committee meeting is scheduled for Thursday, November the 20th at 12. November 30th, I'm sorry, 2023 at 12 p.m. And I want to share something that we also talked about that I think is very important. For the last 5 to 6 years, we've received basically the same amount of money from the county commission. And as everyone knows, when you go to buy stuff now, it's obviously things are higher. Through attrition, we were able to save $2.5 million with some positions. But unless something has changed, Mr. McDaniel is going to propose us a budget tonight that's going to take $4 million out of our fund balance. That then next year will leave us $400,000 in our fund balance. Times are tough, but any of you who know commissioners, you know, I hope you would explain to them, we have tried to save money. We have saved $2.5 million this year, but if we use that $4 million this year, we will only have $400,000 next year, and it's just not possible. So, not blaming the commissioners for anything. I'm just saying that times are tough, inflation, and, you know, when you keep getting the same salary or same amount of money allotted to you for 5 or 6 years, you know, inflation's caught up with us, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Shores. We have several action items. Yes.
I have a question on that health bill.
We'll be there in just a minute. If you'll hold
Okay.
that till
It's
we get,
coming.
it's on there.
All right,
get
well,
you.
I've got the invoice pulled up.
Okay. The first action item is our personnel report. This is our standard personnel report and substitute report. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Humphries, I'll let you have that. And Mr. Fitch, you good with a second?
Yes, sir.
Any questions or discussion? Those in favor of the personnel report and substitute list, if you raise your hand. That carries 9-0. We'll call on Dr. Fisher to outline the teacher supplement proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Mr. Shores did a wonderful job of highlighting the teacher supplement in the finance and personnel report. I just want to reiterate that that committee did discuss the local teacher supplement and the district's plan to increase the local teaching supplement. The recommendation is to move the local teacher supplement from this current rate of 7.75% to 9.25%. which according to our MOU with the county commissioners, the county pays 3% and the Cleveland County Schools pays 6.25%. If you notice that 1.5% increase this year, 1% of that will come from direct county appropriation, 5% or 0.5% comes from our general fund. This is to go into effect November of 2023. As typical, we plan to distribute teaching supplements at the end of November. That'll go again in June, so that will get those in time for the fall teaching supplement. The recommendation was approved by the committee. Is recommended to this board. Just so you know that the district's MOU with the county has a plan to raise the supplement again next year to reach 10% next year. I want to commend this board, its vision and collaboration with the county and the Board of Commissioners in an intense effort to raise teaching supplements. It wasn't long ago that we had teaching supplements in the 4 to 4.5% range, and through a specific designed approach, this board and their leadership, along with the county and the leadership in the county commission, has directly impacted teacher supplements to where Cleveland County Schools was lagging behind in teacher supplements, and now we are extremely competitive in this region and one of the leaders in terms of teacher supplements, especially when we get to 10%. So that is quite an accomplishment, and I know that our teachers appreciate that. And while the money's nice, it also is a signal that you're sending to your commitment to high-quality education and instruction that goes on in our school system. So that proposal is recommended for your approval, and I'll be glad to try to answer any questions, Mr. Quinn.
Any questions for Dr. Fisher on the supplement? Okay, this does come from committee recommended for approval. Those in favor, if you raise your hand. And that carries 9-0. And we'll let you continue on with the school nurse invoice.
Yes, sir. And as Mr. Shores read, noted on the school nurse contract, there was some question about the breakdown of that. So we have worked with the county health department for a new nurse invoice. I believe you've got some information on that emailed to you. The amount of that invoice is $884,448. That is the invoice for this year. If you remember, several years ago, some of you, I think Mr. Blanton, you may have been the only one on the board when we entered into the agreement with the county that we paid 40% of actual nurse costs a year in the rears, meaning that the cost of the nurses last year, the actual cost, the breakdown, and you multiply that by 40%, and that's what we pay. Now, the county has revenue streams in terms of billing Medicaid or different things there that they can do to recoup some of their costs. But the agreement was 40%, and that way it was not a random amount of how much you're paying and increases. And we've had lots of those conversations over the years about, increase in fees. So we pay 40% of the actual cost the year after. So this year's invoice of $884,448 is 40% of the actual cost last year. As you know, the cost of healthcare has skyrocketed recently, and we can look down our invoices and see that. The question was asked of what's the history there. I've got a 4-year history. In 2021, the cost was $658,553.34.
Is this our cost?
This is our cost, yes. This is the 40% cost that we pay. Great question. In 21-22, that cost went down to $514,779.36. If you think about the year before, we're halftime and doing some different things, so it's 40% of the actual cost. In 22-23, the cost, last year, the cost increased significantly to $821,965.78. And then this year, the invoice is, as I mentioned, $884,448. That is a lot of money, but as you know, cost of healthcare, having school nurses in our school is a huge asset to what we're doing. So that is recommended for your approval, obviously due to the amount because it exceeds $75,000.
Well, I'll call on Mr. Blanton first since you had a question.
Well, Mr. Shores mentioned $1 million.
That's what the original
And
invoice
we had
was.
questions about it.
Okay, I'd like to know, let the question be told. What did you catch there? Because I'm gonna bring out something else. When we pay this, we're supposed to have a certain style, certain caliber nurse at the high schools, and a certain kind at North Shelby, at the middle schools and the elementary schools. Well, I've known of there are times that we didn't have a nurse and they was having to team up and double up at schools because they wasn't furnishing. Well, I look at it, and I think that was the reason it got cut, because they wasn't furnishing the nurse that if we pay for one, we should have it there.
Mr. Blanton, that is why we pay 40% of the actual cost the year before. So if they have a vacancy and they're not accruing cost, then that reduces our cost. So our cost is 40% of the actual cost. So instead of 20 nurses, if they only have 16 employed, obviously what happens?
The costs
Costs
come
go
down.
down, so our 40% would go down.
Right.
So if they are fully staffed, then that cost is up.
84.
So our cost is up. So we get out of that, and you had some we've had this discussion for years about concerns about vacancies and do we have somebody covered, and that's why we went of 40% of actual costs the year after. So whatever we accrue as far as costs this year will influence our invoice for next year. Okay? Does that make sense?
All right.
Mr. Spurling?
So I've noticed on here, part of the cost is retirement, dental insurance, medical insurance, and so on. At what point, and is it possible, I don't even know if it's possible to do this, but at what point is it cheaper for us to hire our own nurses versus contracting?
So I think if you look at the real cost of nurses was $2.2 million and some change. I know it's, when I say change, that's $11,000, but $2.2 million. So I think, Mr. Spurling, the actual cost to us, if we decided we're gonna do our own nurses,
Yes.
would be
$2 million.
$2.2 million.
Okay.
I think, and then because, you're not gonna be able to hire nurses except at market rate, and that's what's happening. I think an additional cost that would come onto the school system would then be liability of,
Liability insurance.
one of our employees would be the nurse. Now, there are districts that have their own nurses, but for us to have a nurses, we would also have to have a nurse supervisor. So they would have to actually have a head nurse to report on. So there's some limiting factors that, in my opinion, don't make that financially prudent for us
Okay.
to run our own. I think we get the benefit of, sure, there are some costs in that $2.2 million that we could save, but I think the vast majority of those costs would be real costs that if we ran our own nursing program, we would have to have.
So I guess the other way I should have put that was, without going through this line by line, because there's a lot of items in this, what percentage of this or what amount of this goes to the health departments who supplies these, right?
That's correct.
So is this just their cost for the nurses, or are we giving them money for using their nurses?
This is their cost. This is
Okay.
actual real cost.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Well,
We're not
like it-
paying, if I'm understanding, we're not paying, a retainer or anything like that to use them. This is actual real cost.
Well, see, like at the high school, it's nurse practitioner, isn't it? And they're just about like the doctor, and then a registered nurse, and then a regular nurse, and this.
So
as it
obviously,
goes.
those employees would hire salary, just like, yes, sir, that's exactly right.
Let me just say one thing concerning the nurse practitioners. If you have a nurse practitioner, they have to have a doctor that they report to. So if we went into our own business of nurses, which I do not want to do, we would have to also put a doctor on our staff to oversee the nurse practitioners.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not
I'm
suggesting we
just
do
saying-
that. I just
saying-
wanted to know how much we're giving the health department.
Right,
for the
right, and it's
use
I
kind
don't
of-
think there's any profit.
And it's
Yeah.
kind of crazy that the county pays us
Yeah,
and we turn around and pay them back.
got it.
Now, and I think it's prudent that I mentioned, that there are services that we bill Medicaid for, that we can bill for, and they get, reimbursement. So, if you have your own nurses, now you can have the opportunity to do that, but now you have to have financial staff that do that. And we have people that do that, and that's a funding revenue stream, especially for our exceptional children's department, with reimbursement there. But if you get into the nurses, now you're filing for reimbursement for a whole lot of other services that are beyond the scope of what we're doing. So, yes, you may be able to recoup a lot of that $2.2 million, but in my opinion, it's not going to be financially lucrative for the school system to transition into that, especially considering you're adding the liability and the administrative cost of having to supervise that.
Any other
Great
questions or comments? Since we have a revised invoice, since the committee, we'll need a motion and a second.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bridges, seconded by Mr. Shores. Any further discussion? Those in favor of the school nurse invoice, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. And I believe next we have Mr. McDaniel with the budget resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. In your packet tonight, you've got an updated beginning budget resolution, updated from the Finance and Personnel Subcommittee meeting. Primary changes that came down from that point until today were reflected in the state's additional allocations that came down. I do apologize for it being later in the year. The budget comes out, but we are at the mercy of the state. The state released their budget last month, so that's given us the opportunity to go through and build up the budget for our local school system. I'm not going to go through it line by line, but I will hit a few highlights. State budget didn't vary a whole lot. There are still some adjustments coming down from the state. They will revolve around adjustments for charter schools. That's primarily what's missing at this point, charter schools and restart schools. Fund 2, Section 3, that's our local current expense. As Mr. Shores alluded to, there's a draw on the bottom there for just over $4 million out of fund balance. My staff and I will monitor this diligently. We did that last year. If you recall, last year our projection was $3.9 million, and we were able to shift some expenses to other funds. Our hope is that we can do that again this year if some additional money comes down from other funding sources. The next section, Section 5, is the federal grants. You'll notice that entire budget has dropped. It's come down primarily because ESSER 2 has ended. So now we're down to the majority of that budget that's posted for this year is ESSER 3, the remaining HVAC projects. Once this year is complete, that will drop down again. Section 7 is capital outlay. And if you look at the bottom of capital outlay, you'll see the total of $21 million. That does include the remaining amounts to be paid on the auditoriums. So when those are complete, that will go back down, and it also has some money set aside to cover the athletic projects which are currently out for bid. Next section, the Section 9 is child nutrition. It's very similar to last year's budget. They did a really good job last year of maintaining their cost, keeping them down, and also generating sales. So Jamie Currier and her staff deserve recognition for the job they did last year to be able to adhere to the budget that we gave them to follow. Head Start's also on that page. Their budget does not vary much from year to year. And Section 13 is our Special Revenue Fund 8 section. You'll notice at the bottom it does say that, or actually on the back of the next page, it does show a $5 million draw from fund balance. Fund 8 varies quite a bit as far as the funding that comes into it. So we have to budget $5 million. Typically, we won't use that amount coming out of Fund 8. That's a grant fund where we get a lot of our federal grants. We'll pass through there. Any specific questions, I'll be glad to answer them if I can.
Mr. Spurlock.
So I think there's two ways to tell whether you've done good with your budget or not. Personal, business. One is, did I have money at the end of the year? And the second is compared to something else or somebody else. Don't know if you know this. Answer it if you do. If you don't, that's okay. Or Dr. Fisher might know, how are we compared to other, how is our financial health compared to other school systems in our region, or compared to, that's in our economic status? How are we compared to them? Or is everybody going through this, or is this something unique to us, or?
I would say everybody's going through this right now. I guess if you have to exclude the larger, the Charlotte Mex, those kind of districts where their local budget increase is our entire budget. If you take counties that are similar to us in size, they're going through the same issues right now that we're going through. Everybody's going through the human capital issue right now, trying to retain employees, keep them at a competitive wage. It's very hard right now. You can, Dr. Wampler can probably speak to that, but that's a challenge. You've got lots of competition out there, essentially, trying to hire your employees away, so it makes it difficult. And then next year, of course, with federal funding ending next year, a lot of districts around us, they're talking about the cliff, the financial cliff that's coming. Our district has chosen not to employ personnel with those federal funds that we had. We instead did the HVAC projects. So I think in terms of what's coming in next year's budget, we will be in very good shape in terms of being able to retain who we have and not having to let employees go that are funded federally because we chose not to use the ESSER money to fund those folks.
Mr. Fitch?
Yeah, being a part of the Finance Committee, I'd like to commend Mr. McDaniel and his group. If you sat and watched those numbers, just like he said, they were projected to use 3.9 million last year. His group was able to figure out a way to only use 2.4? 2.4. We are very lucky to have the group that we have running our system financially. So I would like to express my appreciation for the job that your group does for us. We're very lucky here in Cleveland County to have you.
I have a good staff upstairs.
Anyone else have questions on the budget resolution? All right. Since this has modified slightly from committee, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget as presented.
Motion by Mr. Shore, second by Mr. Bridges. Any further questions or discussion? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. Thank you, Mr. McGinn.
Thank you.
We'll move on to educational programs. Mr. Humphries.
Yes. So the Education Programs Committee met on November the 13th. November the 3rd. The September financial report and report to SBPC for September was presented and reviewed by OSR Director, Mrs. Paula Pillar. The committee approved the report from Ms. Pillar. District MTSS Coordinator, Ms. Gina Gold, presented school improvement plans for the 23-24 school year. Mrs. Gold provided the committee with an overview of the NC STAR platform and highlighted the process each school completes regarding the development of approval of their school improvement plan. The team reviewed the various components of the school improvement plan. Mrs. Gold reminded the committee about the stakeholders, both school level and parents, that are able to provide feedback on the implementation of the plan. Each school has parental stakeholders that serve on the school improvement team. Each school also selects parents to serve on the district parent advisory committee. With no other questions from the committee approved the school improvement plans. CTE Director Rhonda Benfield provided the committee with updates from career and technical development. CTE is completing an ongoing needs assessment. Penny Klontz received a $21,000 grant that can be used for students who are completing internships. Internships occur year-round. The EMT pre-apprenticeship is progressing well. Cleveland County Schools is only the third system in the state to have an approved EMT pre-apprenticeship program. CTE is in discussions to further deepen our partnerships within the community. Dr. Ware shared an update on the district's plans for English learners. Dr. Ware shared updated EL numbers for our district and highlighted current practices to support EL students. And the committee also visited the elementary robotics bill day that was occurring at that time. With no other business, the meeting was adjourned. The next meeting is scheduled for Friday, December the 1st at 11 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Humphries. We do have two action items with educational programs. First is the Head Start report. We have the Head Start report to the School Board and Policy Council and the Head Start financial report. Both of those are for September. Does come from committee, recommended for approval. Any questions or discussion on those reports? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. Next is school improvement plans. You have those in your packet for each of the schools. And again, the school improvement plans come from committee, recommended for approval. Any questions or discussion on those?
Recommend we approve all the plans.
Well, that does come from committee, so we got the motion there, so I'll call the question. Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. All right, moving on to operations, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The November 3rd Operations Committee meeting was called to order. by Chairman Greg Taylor. Dr. Jennifer Wampler and Chip Childers provided the capital projects report for review by the committee. This report will be attached to the board agenda in November as an informational item. Daniel Sherman updated the committee on the HVAC ESSER projects at our high schools. These projects are on schedule. Burns High is finishing up Phase 6 this week. Crest High School is in Phase 7. Both are tracking on schedule. Shelby High switchboard has arrived and will be installed over Christmas break. Dr. Wampler shared the communities and schools has expressed the desire to renew their lease and based on the agreed upon terms in our current contract, they are eligible for an additional 3-year term. Since the committee had no objections, Dr. Wampler will communicate to CIS that the lease has been extended for 3 years with an available second 3-year renewal available in January of 2027. Dr. Wampler shared an update on the press box projects at Burns and Crest High Schools. These projects are out for bid for the second time due to an efficient number of bidders on the first bid due date. Bids are to be opened on November 7th. Dr. Wampler hopes to have recommendation to the board on these projects at their November meeting. Dr. Fisher shared that we received proposals from multiple architects, related to the RFQ for additions to Beth Ware and Kings Mountain Middle Schools. For the Beth Ware project, Dr. Fisher and his staff are recommending Holland and Hamrick be the architect for that project. For the Beth Ware project, this was unanimously approved by the committee and we brought to the board for approval at tonight's meeting. For the Kings Mountain Middle project, Dr. Fisher is recommending that presentations from 3 architectural firms be conducted at the December Operations Committee meeting. A recommendation will come to the board in December from the committee after the presentations. Dr. Fisher presented a recommendation to pay the final invoice from T.C. Strickland related to the Shelby High Fieldhouse project. With no additional business, this meeting was adjourned. The next Operations Committee meeting is scheduled for Friday, December 1st at 10 a.m. Central hang on.
The sentence got out of order.
Sorry. Yeah, I thought when I was reading, I apologize. Let me back up. Dr. Fisher presented a recommendation to pay the final invoice from T.C. Strickland related to the Shelby High Fieldhouse project. Project from the SCIF grant. This last invoice is for $632,899.45. Part of this invoice will be covered by money recently received from the Shelby High School Booster Club in the amount of $93,000. The committee approved paying this invoice as recommended by Dr. Fisher. Dr. Fisher shared school calendar recommendations for the next school year. For the next 2 school years that are being considered, the plan is for multiple calendar options to be presented to the full board for consideration at their November meeting. With no additional business, the meeting was adjourned. The next Operations Committee meeting is scheduled for Friday, December 1st at 10 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I'd like to call on Dr. Fisher to go over the Fieldhouse invoice.
I got, should say, but I've got to say this, that when a booster club, this goes for all 4 schools, or all of our schools that's got these booster clubs, when they bring a price into that they're going to go out here and raise money, and then they come back, y'all might have not got the phone call I got, but I got a phone call from a lady. She says, "We got you. Y'all gonna have to pay for it." That's exactly right. T.C. Strickland done his work. And he needs to be paid. It's finished. But when I know for sure that there's people donated money and they was asked to put that money to a certain spot instead of toward the building, that building should have been paid for before you get your wants. They needed the field house, but those wants should have waited till the building was paid for. But then when I got that phone call and they says, we got you now, y'all are gonna have to pay for it because y'all bailed Kings Mountain out to a certain degree, and we did, with the pipe that was going under that ball field, and that wasn't brought up, when we agreed to do that. When we agreed to help these booster clubs and stuff out, they need to follow through with what they say they're gonna do, instead of then coming back at us. That money's gotta come from somewhere, and it's coming from the taxpayers. And I'm looking over top. We need to be taking care of our children. In that classroom, we got buildings that needs work, and now we've had to pull out $500,000 to help pay for a field house. That's not right, folks. And it's not that I'm against football or field houses or anything like that, but we need to need to start putting our horses in front of the cart instead of the cart in front of the horses. I don't know how to say it any other way, but I will be, as long as I'm on here, when people comes and wanting us to do things and want our support, then we need to be getting their full support too when it happens. Thank you.
Dr. Fisher?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just to highlight a few things, and I would like to commend the board on their work with the committees. Obviously, the committee reports have fallen right along with the agenda and staff recommendations tonight. There is a recommendation, this was discussed at the Operations Committee, to pay the final invoice from T.C. Strickland related to the Shelby High School Fieldhouse project from the SCIF grant. If you remember, the SCIF grant was a grant that was written specifically for athletic facilities, field houses at Shelby, press boxes at 3 of our schools, some lighting and other things. So that grant is what that was written for. So the last invoice is actually lower than what we had. We had had a conversation with the Stricklands. That invoice, if you have the memo that I sent you earlier today, is for $608,313.58. That's what we're recommending approval of tonight. Just as a note, we do have $93,000 that the Booster Club has paid us. So our part that will come out of that SCIF grant is $515,313.58. However, due to the fact that it is an amount coming from Cleveland County Schools, the board, in my opinion, needs to approve the full amount, and that we already have $93,000 collected from the Booster Club. We will continue to work with the Booster Club about repaying some of this money. So that's a recommendation that we pay that in the total amount, again, of $608,313.58.
Any questions for Dr. Fisher? Mr. Shore.
How much was the total SCIF grant for?
$4.9 million.
Specifically for athletics?
Yes, sir. Press boxes, concession stands, restrooms, lighting upgrades, field house renovations.
Have we got that 4.9, all of it already allocated?
Loosely. We've identified some projects and budgeted those projects out, so
If we don't spend the money, does it go back?
that it is specifically written in the budget, and for the General Assembly, this is what this is for.
But
So
they
yes, sir.
done got their portion now.
That's all.
Mr. Spurlin.
When did this project start?
It started after football season last year, I believe. Is that correct? Mr. Blake? Remember when they began the field house? I think it was after football last year. So this time last year, I believe.
I think it was longer than that because they were without a field house for a year.
That's right. That's right. We didn't have a field house last year.
2 years
so
ago.
It's been going 18 months. The total invoice was about $2.5 million. So 2.5 million minus 600,000
So
is the remaining bill.
can I finish?
Yes.
Okay, so So if it started 18 or so months ago, was it brought to, I wasn't on the board then, was it brought to the board, or does it have to be brought to the board for a project like this to start?
Yes, sir. So typically when we have a booster club or an organization, it doesn't have to be a booster club that wants to do a capital improvement, we require them to come to the board, do a presentation, give board approval. Anytime they're changing or enhancing our facilities. That could be a booster club, that could be a drama department, could be anybody that's changing our facilities. And so we've had, different organizations do that over the last 10 or 15 years.
So the whole board knew about it?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Okay. And when they started having problems paying, I'm asking this, but I was on the committee meeting. The committee knew about it. When we knew they were having trouble. And in the committee meetings, we've discussed how we were going to handle this. We did not expect to have to pay for the whole thing, true. But we have already discussed hopefully recouping some of this money. So it is not, even though it is in the SCIF grant, it is not, we've already discussed in the committee meetings that this is not just an outright gift.
Yes, sir. We originally allocated $900,000 to the project.
As their share.
Yes. And so then we
But they had already got some.
As their share.
Yes, as their share. Then we had a request for some more, so we allotted an additional $200,000+ to bring in a little over $1.1 million. And now that the project is complete, it is complete, it's done. We have the final invoice. And as a good faith effort, the Shelby Booster Club has already paid us, in the last couple of months, $93,000. We do anticipate continuing to get money from them. We're working with the Shelby Booster Club for that. But the building is complete, and as Mr. Blanton said, the Stricklands need to be paid for the building, and then we'll work and negotiate with the Booster Club on some sort of reimbursement plan.
But I just want to point out that it's not just an outright gift.
That's correct.
That there are discussions underway how they can repay it. And so I just wanted to make the public clear that this, it wasn't like we have a choice of whether we pay for it or not, right? It has to be paid for. And so now discussions are how is it going to be repaid?
That's correct.
Okay.
Anyone else? So the invoice is less than what we had in committee, so even though it's less, it's a different number. I'll entertain a motion to approve the invoice to Strickland Construction.
I'll make a motion.
All right, motion by Mr. Shores.
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitch. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I will have to recuse myself from the vote due to my most recent involvement.
Okay. Any other discussion? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand.
I'm raising my hand that
Carries 8 to
T.C.
0.
Strickland gets his pay.
Next, we have the architect selection for Beth Ware project. Dr. Fisher?
Yes, sir. As Mr. Taylor mentioned, we, and you are aware, we've shared up here in superintendent updates, we've been through the RFQ process for architect selection for Beth Ware Elementary and Kings Mountain Middle School. We would like to bring a recommendation to the board, as was discussed in the committee meeting for Beth Ware Elementary project. Our team recommends the use of Holland and Hamrick to be approved as the architect for the Beth Ware project. This project was presented and approved by the committee, and we recommend it for full board approval tonight. Just as a matter of conversation for the Kings Mountain Middle School project, we have several firms that we're going to bring back into December to review that. We did decide to separate these because of the nature of those projects. Beth Ware is, if you look at our capital improvement project, is project 1A, and we need to go ahead and get moving with some work on that project as we look at potential grant opportunities and potential partnerships with some of the things we're trying to do on that Bethware campus. So we need that work to begin, and we feel comfortable with the proposal from Holland Hamrick, and we recommend them for approval tonight.
All right, that does come from committee, recommended for approval. Any questions or discussion? So this will just be for the Bethware project, selecting Holland and Hamrick Architects for that project.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
So just a matter of discussion, can you tell us just a little bit, not too in-depth, but a little bit of what this entails?
Yes, sir, I'd be glad to. So we are looking at a classroom addition, a significant classroom addition at Bethware, probably on the idea of 12 to 16 classrooms. We also are looking at the addition of a district science center, more than just a science classroom, but an inclusive science center that would go onto that campus. We do, as a part of that, we would like to reorganize a little bit of that campus, obviously look at traffic flow, campus layout. We have buildings there that were built in the 1920s, 1940s, and so at some point those buildings need to go away with some modern new classrooms. We are experiencing growth in that Bethware district. As you guys probably remember, a little over a year ago, or about a year ago, we approved some modular units there. So we are out of space there at Bethware. We anticipate that school to continue to grow. So looking at significant classroom addition, the potential of a STEM or science center that could be used district-wide. We feel like the location, and regionally, not just with our district, but regionally, we feel like the location of Bethware right there on 74 makes that prime location for that. We look at some potential other things with that property and surrounding area that we would love to do as we get into that project. So we do have some interest, some partnership interest with some local business and local industry that may be interested in doing that, especially as we look at Science Center, look at STEM education, robotics, all those type of things. So we're excited about some of the opportunities that lie ahead. Obviously, a lot of work to do, a lot of financing need. If you know anybody that has $20 or $25 million laying around, we'll be glad to work into that. Naming rights are an option, but we definitely have some big dreams there, and that's why it's important that we begin the work with the architect to start it with some drawings, some sketches, some look at that land to say, how do we best use that to maximize the work for our students in the Cleveland County Schools.
Any other, Mr. Biden?
Well, if we started on the middle school first, then that would open the door for us to change the intermediate school back to an elementary school. That would open the door up for a whole lot, because that school holds a lot of children, that intermediate school. And if we put our focus on that middle school and got that changed, would that not be the best project to start trying to get money for first? Because you're opening up a school that'll house 800 children versus a school with 400.
In my opinion.
And then that would put all of it in line, because we shut the Shelby Intermediate down, and I guess the school zone of the zones, and we'd all be on the same page at all three school districts.
If you reference our capital improvement plan, the capital improvement plan starts with Bethware, and that is Project 1A, moves to Kings Mountain Middle School as Project 1B. In my opinion, the addition to the classroom addition at Bethware is going to be needed because of the growth in that county. So starting in that area and meeting that immediate need is most important. I understand the idea of realigning and reorganizing that, and that's in that plan, and that is a part of that. But I think the start at Bethware is in my opinion, the place to address the most immediate need and the bang for your buck.
But we relined Shelby, and we took the blow there. What's the difference in relining there
The difference is, Mr. Blanton, you didn't have to build a school, you didn't have to do a school addition to do that. We had already built Shelby Middle School that was about 55% capacity. So you had the capacity with the existing infrastructure to support that reorganization. That was presented to the board and approved. In Kings Mountain, you do not have the current capacity to do that.
Well, you've got it if you look at that intermediate school.
You're still gonna have to add on to Beth Ware and do Kings Mountain Middle, regardless of how you wanna restructure that.
Well, we got Grover, it's full too, right?
That's not in our, immediate plans. I mean,
Okay.
obviously, you've got multiple things there.
Any other questions on the architect select?
What's the anticipated cost of Beth Ware?
Mr. Grigg, that's a great question, question that quite honestly, I don't have an answer for you at this time, based on current trends in construction costs, based on things that are going. I think as we work with an architect, we begin to look at other elementary schools that are built. I would have said several years ago, an elementary school classroom addition of this size, a science center.
Dr. Fisher, could you hang on just a minute?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, could we get quiet over here and why can't I hear everything you say? We've got
Yes,
too
if
much
y'all-
talking over here and it's disrespectful to the
Quiet
superintendent.
down, please. Thank you.
Until we get some design work done, until we get some surveys, until we get, a better scope of what we want to put on there, it's hard to estimate building costs right now. I know that in having conversations with other superintendents and other districts that have bid out projects, the cost of school construction is quite large, quite significant. And so, recently a district close to us done a high school, and that high school cost is in excess of $125 million for a high school. Years ago, I would have thought, $12 to $15 million would put you a significant classroom addition and all the things we want to do. But quite honestly, Mr. Grigg, until we get further down that process, I hate to even give you a number to guess of what the cost would be.
Where are we going to get that money from is, I guess, another question I want to ask.
Well, if I could clarify, the idea is to work with the architect first, just to kind of figure out what we need. What is it, 14 classrooms, is it 16, or what? And work on getting something that we can actually start doing some costs with, because until we do that with the volatility of the market now, we just won't know. And then it gives us an idea of where to go find the funds at that point. It's kind of one of those, we're going to have to spend a little bit to get started to figure out what the end's going to be.
So the state has needs-based grants for school construction. And now with needs-based grants, you have to agree to accept that money, you have to be moving forward with the project in 24 months. So to apply that, have the best case, we need to be far enough along that project to be able to guarantee that if we got awarded $25 million for an elementary expansion, we could begin construction in less than 24 months. So to be at ground zero and apply for that grant is not real wise, because to accept that, you have to be doing it. If you hadn't started construction in 24 months, you forfeit the grant.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to remind everybody, it wasn't 6 months ago, we were having heated discussions about the modules moved into Beth Ware and how we were running out of space. So this project coming before the intermediate school, to me, is partially, maybe not all, but partially based on we need to get this done so we can cover that growth.
Any other questions on the Beth Ware project? All right, that does come from committee recommended for approval of Holland and Hamrick for the Beth Ware addition. I hate to ask, but any further discussion? All right, those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, so that cut passes 6-3. And Dr. Fisher, I'll let you continue on with the press box bids.
Just an update, do not have any action item tonight, just an update that, if you remember, and.
One correction, I was saying I approved, I'm sorry. One correction. 7-2.
Okay. All right, I have that corrected.
Oh, no, you're good.
No, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Just to kind of update you from communication over the last probably couple weeks, we had an original bid date of the press box. We use the term press box, but it's really press box, concession stand, and restroom facilities at Creston Burns High School. We had an original bid date of October 24th. Unfortunately, we only had one person bid there, so we could not, by statute, open bids that day. We did reset the bid date for November 7th. At that date, we had two bids. Being that that was the second bid date, we were able to open bids. The low bid that we opened that day was higher than expected. Going back to your question in terms of, the SCIF grant, was that allocated loosely? We had designated some money or looked at that SCIF grant and tried to allocate dollars to different schools for different projects. So we're currently working with a low bidder in an attempt to value engineer and looking for ways to reduce costs with those projects. We hope and anticipate to be able to make a recommendation to the board by Friday of this week. I would like for you to hold, if possible, Friday, November 17th at 11 o'clock, a time for a special call meeting to consider a proposal for that press box restroom concession stand buildings. If that does not work for you, if you could let me or the chairman know later tonight or early in the morning, we will not
Just say,
notice.
let's go ahead and do that now. Does Friday
Okay.
at 11 a.m. work?
Is that this Friday?
This Friday.
I won't be here. I'm out of town. If that's when I can call in, then I can do that.
We can call in. Mr. Gregg, would you be able to call in?
Just need to have 5 here that you could call in.
Well, I'd like to have everybody if we can. Okay,
I'll be here.
all right, so we'll,
Okay, so we'll go ahead and notice that meeting tomorrow. If for some reason we cannot reach an acceptable price and funding strategy, then we can cancel that with the appropriate notice. But we'll go ahead and notice that tomorrow, if you'll hold your calendars open for that. But hopefully at that time, we'll have a better proposal recommendation for you in terms of those two projects.
all right. Thank you, Dr. Fisher.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Policy Committee report. Mr. Humphries.
Okay, the Policy Committee met on October the 31st. Policy 1310/4002, parental involvement, was reviewed in light of the recently passed Parent Bill of Rights, and an additional update recommended by the North Carolina School Board Association. Board received this policy as a first read at the October meeting, and it will come tonight for a second read and approval. This continues to be the recommendation of the committee. Dr. Fisher led a discussion on policies 3460, 3460E, and 3460R, which are related to graduation requirements. This discussion was in light of recent changes by the General Assembly related to graduation credit requirements and early graduation. These changes are still being discussed at the state board level. Dr. Fisher shared a copy of the current North Carolina State Board of Education Policy Grad-001 update. Dr. Fisher plans to bring a policy update recommendation to the Policy Committee at their November meeting, contingent upon the state board's direction. The committee discussed Policy 4318, use of cell phones and wireless communication devices. Specifically, discussion was related to high school principals' discretion use of cell phones during lunch for students who have completed the required cell phone courses. The committee unanimously agreed to leave the policy as it is. The committee is considering a recommendation to require a student cell phone course as part of the yearly technology use expectations for students in grades 6 through 12. Dr. Fisher shared school calendar recommendations for the next 2 school years that are being considered. The plan is for multiple calendar options to be presented to the full board for consideration tonight. There was a brief discussion related to policies on student transfer and community usage of school district facilities These will be potential items for future committee meetings. Dr. Wampler shared that an update is being made to the video presentation request form. This does not require board approval, but was shared as an information item. With no new business, the meeting was adjourned. The next policy committee meeting is Tuesday, November the 28th at noon.
Thank you, Mr. Humphries. We do have one policy for approval. That's policy 1310 and 4002, which is in parental involvement. That does come from committee, recommended for approval. Any questions or discussion on that policy? That is the one that incorporates the recently passed Parent Bill of Rights from the state legislature. Already got it from committee. You're good. All right, those in favor of that policy would raise your hand. And that carries 9-0. On to the Safety Committee report, Mr. Fitch.
Yes, thank you.
When is that, they gonna bring out this about the calendar and?
That's in Dr. Fisher's, in his superintendent's update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Safety Committee met on October the 31st. Chairman Fitch opened with a conversation about the student ID system and processes, ultimately asked staff to examine policies and surrounding school systems for best practice and future implementations. Sandy Hamrick, Director of Student Services, gave an update on the Say Something reporting system, noting that we have completed all necessary training for schools. Hamrick also thanked the Department of Social Services, local law enforcement agencies for working closely to address abuse and neglect concerns. David Plesk discussed the upcoming football games for the remainder of the playoffs, noting the continued presence of law enforcement during postseason play. He also praised law enforcement for the support during the county rivalry games during the last week of the regular season. Plesk also thanked the emergency medical technicians, responders, for their quick actions in assisting with an emergency health concern following the Crest High School and Kings Mountain High School football game, and for their superb work in potentially saving a life that evening. The committee entered into closed session where Dr. Scholl and Ryan Etheridge gave a comprehensive report on school safety visits that have been taken over the last month. The next safety committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, November the 28th, 2023 at 12 noon. And I would like to add, Mr. Chairman, on that saving of a life, that happened to be one of the coaches for one of our high schools, and I think he's doing well now.
Yes, sir. All right, Dr. Fisher, superintendent's update.
Before we get too much into the superintendent's update, we do have a calendar presentation for you as listed on the agenda. As mentioned in the committee report, we do have several calendars for the board's review. And I just want to kind of highlight that this is an information item. These calendars have been reviewed by Teacher Advisory Committee, by Principal Advisory at our committee meetings, and our exec team. So lots of Cleveland County School leadership folks have reviewed these calendars, and so we're tonight publicly presenting them as calendar options. After tonight, these calendars will be on our website where people can select their preference or highlight their preference on calendars, and also leave comments about the calendars. For each year, for the next 2 years, we have 3 calendar options that we've listed. In years past, if you go back prior to COVID, it was the practice of the board to really have 2 years worth of calendars. So you would really work 2 years ahead of time. This allowed for ample planning and for people to schedule things well in advance. With the madness and craziness around COVID and changing schedules, that stopped. But we would recommend that the board go back to that direction, and when we approve a calendar in December or January, to look about approving a calendar for 24-25 and for 25-26, because we're here almost halfway through the 23-24 school year, and definite plans are being made for 24-25 and even beyond in 25-26. It impacts parents, it impacts even things we're doing from an instructional standpoint. So I want to highlight a couple calendars. I apologize for the the length, I'll try to go through this quick, but I do want to make sure that not only you see the difference in calendars, but people that log on and that go back and reference this can understand what we're dealing with calendars. Calendar A, if you look at the top, is a yellow highlight. I believe when we get down to 25, 26, it's got a blue highlight at the top, so you can reference which calendars we're talking about. This calendar, Calendar A, says early August start. It's not really that early, but it's early compared to the other calendars. This calendar is most like the current calendar that we have, which most people really enjoy. It does have a mid-August start date. You can see there our start date for students is August the 14th. For rear reference, the community college starts on August the 15th. So when we look at the many students that participate in community college promise classes, our CCP colleges, dual enrollment, that aligns really well with the community college schedule. If we go through this calendar, Monday the 2nd of September is Labor Day. We have early release for parent-teacher conferences on September 26th. We have a work day after that. Teachers and school folks really like that. We hear that from teachers all the time about, can you not give us a work day after parent-teacher conferences? So this accomplishes this. You see the end of the first quarter there in October with a work day right after that, which for grades and everything works well. You continue to go. Veterans Day is on Monday next year, so this year Veterans Day was a weekend, so you get observed on a Friday, but Veterans Day is on Monday. That is a required holiday. You don't have any choice in that. It's got 3 days at Thanksgiving. The first one's an annual leave day, and the last two are holidays. And I know you say, well, what's the difference in an annual leave day and a holiday? For students and teachers and 10-month staff, there is no difference. But for 12-month staff, they have the option of working that annual leave day if it's not forced. We hear a lot 2 weeks at Christmas, and this calendar has 2 weeks at Christmas, which checks that boxes. We do have some work days at the end there in January for our high schools to reset their calendar. Ginger, if you'll go back up, just note that this calendar does finish first semester prior to Christmas, so we can take exams prior to Christmas. I believe that is an 86-day semester, first semester, which is not totally balanced, but it's pretty close, especially when we factor in the alignment with the community college. We have a late Easter next year, so spring break is the week before Easter. We do have Easter Monday off. We did look in conversations with especially teacher advisory about moving spring break after Easter, which is typical, and having Good Friday off. But if you look at that, and then we started getting real close into May with AP exams will start the first week of May, and EOGs and EOCs soon after that. So it would be we're out for spring break and come right back and begin AP testing and then other testing. So after some discussion on there, everybody figured, okay, yeah, this year with a late Easter, let's do spring break before. Memorial Day is a holiday. The only, I will say that you know, the challenge, the only really challenge I see with this calendar is the end of the year ending on that Wednesday is a little odd, but we'll work around that for high school exams. We do have 3 work days. One of the suggestions we get is that, well, can't we move that June 2nd day up? Because teachers don't start till Tuesday there in August. We could, but teachers, although they're 10-month employees, they work 215 days, they need to have a work day in 11 months. And so they have a work day in August, they have 1 work day in June. That helps for payroll and keeps consistent as far as filing for their retirement, those type of things. So there is a method to why we do that. It just wasn't, it does make sense to put it there in August, but there is a reason we need to have a teacher day in June. If they take the day and don't work that day, that's their choice. They can use their time if they've earned that, but we do need to have that done. The only challenge there with draft A is that it follows the calendar law in all respects, except it starts before the August 26th date. So that is, you know, the thing we need to note about that calendar. I'm going to go through, and I'm going to go through 24, 25 when Paul's got any questions. So calendar B is a late August start, means that this calendar complies with the calendar law in all respects. So it starts on the 26th. Now you imagine, and I'm trying to be fair to all the calendars, but I want to point out pros and cons to everything. So if you start the 26th, if you remember what I said about the community college, it starts the 15th. So now you have, some challenges there for your kids taking CCP classes with the community college starting and not for traditional schools. Based on the number of days that we have, we were not able to get a teacher workday after parent conferences, which, our teachers and school staff are not a fan of that. We do have a workday at the end of the quarter. Again, Thanksgiving is 3 days. We have Christmas break. In this calendar, we go ahead and end the semester before Christmas, which, we get a lot of feedback at the end of that semester before Christmas, exams before Christmas. But if you notice, this calendar only has 79 days in that first semester. So you're looking at 79 days first semester and 97 or 98 second semester. And if I'm teaching the EOC first semester and you're teaching the second semester, I don't like that, because I want as much time as you have when we're competing in a good way for test scores and on all those type of things. So that's the challenge there with that ending that first semester before Christmas and a short first semester. But it does end before Christmas. We still have 2 weeks of at Christmas there, December into January. We were able to, in February, have a work day after parent conference in February. If you look back at calendar A, we were able to do that as well. Have a work day at the end of the third quarter, consistent. Everything else in February, March, and April are pretty consistent between the two calendars. And obviously this year, because you're starting later, you get out later. Our last day of school is June 5th, and have the work days. So in this one, we don't have to worry about having the one work day in June, because you're definitely hitting 11 months. And then draft C, again, it complies with the calendar law with the start date. Again, no workday after parent-teacher conferences, but if you scroll down to everything else is the same. But if you scroll down to December, you notice that there's no end of the second semester. So this one balances the semesters and puts the end of second quarter there on January the 17th. We do put a work day after Martin Luther King Day, because high schools have to reset their calendars. A lot of work has to be done in resetting the first semester and second semester. So you're churning all those classes over. So we have a work day there. And again, February, March, and April look similar to previous calendars. May, you have Memorial Day, and then you get out again June 5th. Why are you later in June? Because you started later. So I'm going to pause right there with draft A from in 24, 25, draft A, B, and C. Try to answer any questions the board may have.
Mr. Stern.
So I know you said it coincides pretty well with the college in the start date. What about spring break? Does it coincide with the college over that?
I'm not sure with that, Mr. Sperling, but our spring break that's one of those things that's pretty set in terms of around Easter, so we're kind of limited on that. In terms of, some colleges will put spring break back in February, March, and that just would not work well with I don't think that'd be a popular opinion.
Yeah. Okay.
We worked that out. It works out itself out during that spring break time. If you want to help move the college spring break to match ours, that'd be good.
I'll ask them.
We moved our start date. Let them move spring break.
No comment. Mr. Blanton, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, I guess everybody knows that I've always pushed this early calendar to make sure that we get our testing before Christmas, for the children's sakes. You can read that policy that everybody has said that we broke the law. I've got the policy right here. I've read it probably 100 times today. Down in the second paragraph, it does state that a school district can do what's best for their children. And what's best for our children is when they take their test. they'll do better before than after. But when I'm trying to follow the laws, it's hard for me to not follow this law when I'm going to go on an open meeting law. When we have an open meeting, board meeting, we put this board docs out 7 days in advance. That's not all right for in our committee meetings for a quorum to take place with a majority there, and it hasn't been advertised 7 days in advance. I've read more policies in the last 4 days than I've read in the 14 years I've been on here. And not one time that I figured out that that it's right for us to do a quorum. Yes, it's advertised to the public.
Point of order. I think we're getting way off of where we were.
I've got the floor right now.
Well, I have to agree that the discussion's on the calendar, so you need to keep the discussion to the calendar.
Well, this calendar was discussed in a policy meeting when there was 5 board members in there, and that is a quorum. If there hadn't have been but 3 board members in there, then it would have been okay. But there were 4 board members already in there. Sir, you wasn't there. There's 4 board members already in there, and then there's another board member went in. They said they had the authority to go in. That's true.
So are you wanting to throw all the calendars out? Is that, where are we going, I guess is what I'm wanting to know.
All I can say is this. Even the chair of that board, of that committee, made a statement, is this legal? One of our attorneys stood up and said as long as they don't get involved. But after that attorney left, he got involved.
So where are we, what do you want to do with this? Where are we going with this?
If I'm going to stand on the law that we're supposed to follow the law in our meetings, then I'm going to have to stand on the law in our.
Well, that's fine. After it's all said and done, you can vote however your conscience says vote, but I don't know why we're bringing this up now.
Because it's in this meeting and we're fixing to vote on this.
We're going to let Ms. Sink address.
Just for clarification, policy 2210 allows for the chairman to be an ex officio member of all committees. And so it's
That is correct.
appropriate for there to be however many number of board members in the room. The meeting was noticed as a policy committee meeting, probably 30 days in advance.
That policy
Please
was
let Ms. Sink finish.
2017. I was on that board then too. That is correct.
That's right. I mean, so yeah, policy 2210 allows for that scenario to occur, and that meeting was noticed appropriately.
No, it
It's
wasn't.
been on our website, and it's declared an open meeting after the report of each committee.
Any further questions on the calendar?
Yes. I'd like for, how about you explaining then how this here, you come up and explain that. How about explaining what that the law that we're breaking, when it says do the best for your children, but they say that we're breaking the law, okay? I'd like to know.
Mr. Blanton, you correctly stated in the second paragraph that it addresses the fact that we are to get community input, and that's, I think, what is on the agenda right now that we're discussing is the calendar options is to get community input. Dr. Fisher's been going over what our options are. You are also accurate in stating that another portion of that law indicates that it needs to be the Monday closest to August 26th. And yeah, we've been placed in a difficult situation where sometimes community input is very different from that other aspect.
Are we breaking the law or not breaking the law?
Right now,
By
we're
what
just
this policy reads.
right now, we're just having a conversation. You talking about the calendar law, or
The calendar law, are we breaking the law?
like I said, right now, we're just having a conversation on what the options are, seeking community input, so we are in fact attempting to adhere to that law.
All right. Dr. Fisher, you can continue.
So,
I'm sorry, can I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
Tonight's presentation is for information only. We are not, this is
We are
not an action item,
It's not ready
correct?
for action. We have to get the community input first, so this could be an action item either in
And going
December or
forward, but these are the
January.
these are calendars that might be presented to the public. Okay.
these are the calendars that are going to be
Okay.
presented for public input, beginning later this week. We'll let this sit to, at a minimum, December, depending on the amount of public input. The board can consider December or January vote. I would highly recommend that later this week, the public go to, parents and community members go to our website, review these calendars, give input. We'd love to have, we've had teacher advisory committee look at it, we've had principal advisory, we've had district staff look at these calendars and make recommendations. But we would love to have additional staff, parent, community input. The more input we get, I think it sends a message of what is important to our community in terms of school calendars. I can't advance that, it's not. Ginger or Greg, if you'll go to scroll up to the next one. If you notice there, highlighted in blue is a 25-26, and we use the same format. Calendar draft A is an early start. You can see it's that Wednesday. We had a lot of positive feedback, especially from staff as far as the Wednesday start. You get Wednesday in, it makes a lot of sense that first week, from whether it's kindergarten or staggered orientation. Typically in kindergarten, we stagger 3 days. So kindergartners go one of those 3 days and everybody starts that next week. It kind of gets everybody in the flow of what's going on, and then we have a full schedule. So that is the same there with A, goes along with A, B goes along with B, C goes along with C. So there's some alignment between there. We just invite a lot of feedback, a lot of positive comments. We'll have this on the agenda in December, and with the votes, if you will, or input on which calendar people like the best, and we'll have also a place for comments and suggestions for those folks to put. But you're exactly right, just an information, and really information from the board, but kind of even more importantly to that, at this point, is information for the community to say, kick off to say, hey, the board needs your input on this community, on this calendar.
I'd say move on with your update.
Okay, that work? All right. If you have any conversation about school calendars, please let me or Dr. Wampler know. Appreciate her work in putting all those together. So just a few superintendent updates for today. I got a couple pictures. We had some great school visits today at Shelby High School and Shelby Middle School. This is PCG, Peer Group Connection. Some students there, juniors and seniors, that work as peer group leaders at Shelby High School. Those students mentor smaller groups of freshmen. And the board here, board members having the opportunity to listen to these students share their experiences as peer group leaders. Just a really powerful testimony to what these students are doing in a mentoring perspective for younger kids. We have the opportunity, Shelby Middle School, some of our folks are there. We had the opportunity to fly a drone. Mr. Taylor is successfully flying that drone. He did a pretty good job. Probably wouldn't give him an A for drone flying, but we'll give him a proficient maybe. Not distinguished or accomplished, but we'll give him proficient for drone flying on his schedule. Mr. Blanton is flying the drone. You notice I didn't have a picture of the drone because it's up in the ceiling tile that his drone went straight to the ceiling and tried to plow through the second floor for a while. But again, we didn't crash, did we, Mr. Blanton? We didn't crash it and do anything like that.
We got her back down.
So he had a safe, secure landing. So it was good really to highlight two different things at one at Shelby High, one at Shelby Middle. One from really an effective type of mentoring program at our schools, and then this is a CTE class, drone technology, where our kids are really engaged with that. Heard a lot of really good things happening in our schools. This is elementary director, you see Jackson Parker there, it's Chris Hall. In the back right, one of our CTCs there in front of Dr. Parker. These are students at Bowling Springs Elementary, and they are dissecting a squid as a part of the Wit and Wisdom. And you think, well, that's language arts. How is that connected to science? That's where they're doing a great job of cross-curriculum there, and they are doing a squid dissection. I was not able to make it to Bowling Springs on Thursday, but I heard the aroma throughout the school was quite interesting there. So I appreciate what's going on in elementaries. It's a great opportunity for we taking literacy and some of our standards we're doing with ELA, and also marrying it with STEM organizations and our science. It's a great job there. Just a couple of updates for board members and community members. First is the Heroes and Agape Awards Banquet. Board members, just a reminder, that is tomorrow night at 6:30 to LeGrand. It's an opportunity that we recognize students and staff for accomplishments. Parents, elementary and intermediate school progress reports go out on Thursday, November 16th, so they'll be looking for those later this week. Thanksgiving holiday is Wednesday next week through Friday. So schools are closed. Remember looking at the calendars you there. So you got a 5-day week this week and a 2-day week next week as we celebrate the Thanksgiving holiday. High school exams begin the second full week of December, and I encourage parents to make sure they know when their students have exams and what that exam schedule is. They can check with their high school about the school-specific testing schedule. And then Christmas break begins Thursday, December 21st. That's the first day of break. The last student day is Wednesday, December 20th. So be glad to try to answer any questions board members have, but other than that, appreciate the work you do.
I do have one question. How much money did Mr. Blanton cost us trying to fly the drone through the city?
He didn't, we didn't do, it was a successful flight. It was an interesting flight, but it was successful. We were good.
Just landed on the ceiling.
No, he made sure they couldn't.
We got it stopped before it burned up the motors, I think.
But yeah, he had to be, I will admit, he had to be guilted and pressured into flying it. He was pressured into to taking the pilot. He didn't want to do that, but he did a good job. We got a safe landing.
Thank you, Dr. Fisher.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is public participation. Mr. Shores.
Public comments should not address any specific confidential student or personnel matter. Specific concerns related to confidential student or personnel matters should be directed to the superintendent or designee. Comments must be relative to matters that are within the authority of the board. Speakers shall refrain from personal attacks or threats directed towards staff, elected board members, or members of the public. Speakers shall be courteous in their language and presentations. Insults, profanity, use of vulgar language or gestures, or other inappropriate behavior are not allowed. The board vests in its chair or other presiding officer's authority to terminate the remarks of any individual when he or she does not adhere to the rules established above. Any person who willfully interrupts or disturbs a board meeting may be directed to leave the meeting by presiding officer. Any person who refuses to leave may be prosecuted for disrupting a public meeting. Persons appearing before the board are reminded as a point of information that the members of the Cleveland County Board of Education are without authority to act independently as individuals in official matters. Immediate answers are not generally possible and must be deferred pending investigation and consideration by the full board.
Thank you, Mr. Shores. Our first speaker is Robert Williams.
My name is Robert Williams. I live at 814 East Stagecoach Trail. That's a Lawndale address. I live in Fallston. Mr. Blanton made a comment earlier that he's been coming to meetings for 14 years. So have I. I think, Mr. Queen, you have too. But I think tonight's probably been one of the worst meetings I've ever been to with all the various issues. Budget comes to mind. I know we're speaking at the end of the meeting, and I've said previously that I like it this way because I can spot mistakes and maybe bring them up and help resolve them. But with 3 minutes and what happened tonight, that's impossible, so I'm just gonna have to hit the high spots to stay within the time frame. One of the things that came to mind is we have 2 degreed engineers on this board, and both of them went to NC State. I went to NC State too, so I know what they teach in the engineering department. And when we were talking about selecting the architect for one of the, I guess, Burns, whatever you call it, building, and you asked Dr. Fisher for a recommendation. And I don't believe Dr. Fisher has an engineering degree. He's got a lot of degrees, but I don't think any of them is in engineering. I don't think he has any experience in engineering. And for a board with 2 engineers on it to ask somebody with no experience in engineering and architecture to give them a recommendation, it just showed me that you guys, I don't know if you know what you're doing. In the budget, I've watched budget presentations from the school board for 14 years. And every single one of them, when you get around to the budget, it's how much money we're gonna get from the state, that's what we're gonna spend. I've never heard a word about what it actually takes to run the school system. Never, 14 years. So, I don't want to get started anymore. That's all I have to say. Give you back 15 seconds.
Our next speaker is Mark Parker.
Members of the board, I'd like to thank you for your time. I'll try to keep this brief. My name is Mark Parker. I've taught at Burns for 23 years now, all my career, currently enjoying year 24. I come tonight representing the Cleveland County chapter of the NCAE, and for myself, our executive team talked today, and we were talking about the supplement. And on behalf of the chapter, Cleveland County chapter of the NCAE, we'd just like to thank you for that support that you've shown to the teachers and the commitment that shows towards this school system. It's a huge step in recognizing us, the teachers, and rewarding us, but also, like I said, the commitment you're showing to retaining good teachers. So just on behalf of them, of the chapter of the NCAE and myself, like I said, just like to say thank you for that and for all the hard work that each of y'all put into this. I know it can be a tireless task, but thank you for everything that y'all put into this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Third speaker is Matt Holland.
Well, my name is Matt Holland. I'm the director of the Pregnancy Resource Center here in Cleveland County. This is my first school board meeting, and I appreciate the work y'all are doing. I have a board myself at the ministry I serve with, and I know how important it is to gather information, to have partnerships. And I want to stop there just for a second. I want to ask each of you fellows, if I can. This is something y'all do as volunteers, is that not right? Or are y'all compensated for this?
There's a small compensation.
Okay, all right, small compensation, all right. But there's a lot of time commitment for you to do this, am I right? This is not something that y'all come one meeting and just, shoot from the hip. I mean, I can tell Mr. Blanton, you do a lot of research, and all you gentlemen do. And I know from having our board is all volunteers. I respect their time, and I respect your time. Our community deserves good schools. I appreciate you compensating our teachers. I have no skin in the game with respect to the school board. The school system, we homeschool all of our children.
But education is important. And if we're going to have quality education in our community, we need quality teachers. Because we're educating the next generation, okay? And they need to know how this country was framed, how our Constitution was framed, their rights. The things you're doing here right now are an example of that on a smaller scale. So I appreciate your service. I appreciate your hard work. And as far as everything else is concerned, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next is board member comments. I'll start on the left side this time. Mr. Grigg, do you have anything?
I just want to say that I want to congratulate the girls that came tonight, the volleyball team. I think that was an outstanding job. I didn't get to go to a school visit today, but I think Dr. Fisher's going to set me up with one of those later on in the week like he does with some of the others. Thank y'all for coming in tonight and keep supporting us. You know, we're wanting to do the best that we can in the school system, but we need your support too. We need more people in our seats out here to see how this board operates. So thank you.
Mr. Bridges?
So I'd just like to say, of course, next week is Thanksgiving, so I just want to wish a good Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving to all our teacher, staff, and students, and hope that everybody has some good time off school and some good food, and hopefully you guys get rested up.
Mr. Taylor?
I'd just like to reiterate what Mr. Grigg said. I'll congratulate Kings Mountain Women's Volleyball on such a great accomplishment. If y'all didn't hear what the coach said, their record was 104-1, and that's very, very hard to accomplish. Hats off to that program, that athletic facility, and that athletic team over there. Had a great visit to Shelby Middle School. Did not have a spectacular time flying the drone, as I'm not very, my thumbs don't work as well as they should. I had a great time flying it. I just was not very good at it, put it that way. Principal over there, Mr. Roberts, is doing a great job. Is new to that school. Commend him, commend staff, and thank you very much.
Mr. Shores?
I saw and heard today two of the best things that I have saw and heard on this since I've been on this school board. We had a group of students, myself and Mr. Bridges. They call themselves the PGC. And what these students do is two of them get together and they mentor every freshman that comes into Shelby High School. They go to training in the summer previous to getting on. It's a selection process. But those students, every one of them, spoke to myself and Mr. Bridges today, and I think he was impressed. And I was so impressed that I asked the principal, would he let those students be at the next high school principal's meeting and speak, because that is something that would really be great in every high school, just hearing those stories of how they mentor kids. So he said he would. As we was walking out, Mr. Bridges said, how's the cell phone policy going? And I'll quote him, he said, as adults, it's going wonderful. He said, and Mr. Bridges followed that, I don't mean to be speaking for you, but I was really impressed today with these two things. He says, Mr. Bridges said, well, do you allow them at lunch? He said, no, we don't allow them at lunch. He said, but you wouldn't believe the interaction that's going on with the kids. He said, you'll see them crocheting and stuff like that. He said, it's got to the point now where they've created a crocheting club because they begin interacting during lunch and talking to each other instead of on them cell phones. And I guess, I don't want to say, anyone, but I'll just say it. Today was my best school visit of what I saw with these mentors and this cell phone policy that I've been on since I've been. Not to say every one of the school visits I go on, there's something wonderful. But just hearing the kids, I guess it's the first time kids actually spoke about what they did, and them taking every single freshman that comes in and having them somebody to talk to and tutor and just the stories. But Dr. Fisher, I mean, I would just recommend that that group speak to all the high school principals.
Mr. Humphries?
Yeah, I'd also like to congratulate again the Kings Mountain High School volleyball team. That was truly an amazing accomplishment. And honestly wished I'd have been there to see it, because it sounds like it was an incredibly cool match, the way it came down to basically sudden death in the 5th set. I normally make it to the Heroes and Agape Awards blanket. Unfortunately, tomorrow night I have a planning and zoning meeting that I have to be at, so I won't make it. So I'll say in advance how much I appreciate, number one, congratulations to everyone that gets an award tomorrow night, all the teachers. And also, back in DOT days, they used to have extra mile awards for the people that went above and beyond the call of duty. To me, that's what this represents with the Heroes and Agapes. These are teachers that are going beyond. So anyway, I really appreciate that, and hate I won't be there.
Mr. Blank?
Well, I want to thank the volleyball team too. I enjoy the volleyball, and so that is accomplishment of what they did. And because I had a daughter that played, and so that's how she paid for her schooling, and so that's good. And I know some of those girls there is going to get scholarships, so I appreciate that. But I went to my school visit down at Shelby Middle School, and yes, I tried to drill a hole. If it had a drill bit on it, I'd have went right out the top. But it was a good meeting, and they got some good things, and it's going on. But there's something else that took place last Saturday night, or this past Saturday night, that I want to thank the Kings Mountain Chorus. Came and we had a veterans dinner that my son always puts together for the veterans in Cleveland County, or all over, anywhere. And we had a packed house, and the chorus group done the singing, and the honor the colors was by our Air Force Honor Corps at Crest High School. And they done a remarkable job. And I want to thank them for doing that, and our staff, and all that staff that came with them on a Saturday night was right there with those kids at that program, and was there for a couple hours. And I want to thank them for that. And we had some cards from children over the county at elementary schools and stuff, put a cards, and it represented the Vietnam. And they done the ribbon, the cards to them was the colors of the ribbon of Vietnam. And we built a platform for them to put it on, and it was probably, that platform was as long as from that flag to this flag, and it was completely full of cards that come from some of our elementary schools that done that. And I had no idea that was going to happen, and it showed up. And those kids, you would be amazed at some of the stories that they put on those cards, from first graders to 5th graders or whatever. So I want to thank that staff and those teachers that spent the time of the weekend, and I know they spent time, other times, to make this just happen, a success.
Mr. Spurlock?
So first, congratulations to our volleyball team. Always an honor and a privilege to see those sports, unbelievable records like that. It's amazing some of the things our young people do. I want to tell you, I don't get to go on the Monday visits to the schools. Normally I have to work on a Monday, so I don't get to go. But I take the opportunity to go when I can. Last week, before I went to work one morning, I had the opportunity to go to Crest Middle School, Miss Tharrington. I spoke to 6 of her classes about career choices. I spoke to 2 6th grade classes, 2 7th grade classes, and 2 8th grade classes. And I'm going to tell you, if number one, I don't know what her class is called. It's a CTE class, but the whole class introduces students to careers. I mean, she basically, she talks about all these different career choices that they can have. She introduces people in our community to come talk to them. If you have a career, I don't care where you work or what you do, go talk to these kids. Here's the truth. They don't know what they don't know. They don't even know the questions to ask. There's jobs out there that they've never even thought about. So they don't know if they're interested in them or not. So if you do, especially if you do a unique job, if you do whatever job you have, take time to talk to kids about your job. You never know. They might follow in your footsteps. I got to go to Township 3 on Thursday. It's kind of funny. They invited me to attend their Veterans Day service the day before I got invited to speak at their Veterans Day service. Thought I was talking to all the elementary kids, and I walked in there, and it was a gymnasium full of adults. So I made it through it. They even invited me to come back next year, so I must not have done a bad job. I'd like to thank our CTE director, Miss Benfield. No, not Benfield. Yeah, Miss Benfield. Yeah, Rhonda Benfield. I got an envelope up here from Kaiser, from the CTE department, wishing me a happy Veterans Day. Means a lot. I can't tell you. So the last thing I'm going to say real quick is when I got to talk at Township 3, they asked all the veterans in the audience to stand up. And I'm going to tell you, it really did my heart good. It was amazing how many people in our community are not only military veterans, but how many volunteer their time for different organizations. How many of them are first responders? How many of them are police officers, firemen, EMT? I can't name. How many of them are nurses? I mean, it's amazing how many people in our community serve others, not just as money makers. There's a lot of people in our community that volunteer time, and I can't tell you how it touches my heart, how proud I am to come from a community that gives. So if you're one of these people that volunteer their time or do something for our community, if you're a teacher, let me tell you, you might as well be volunteering. I wish we could give you more. I really do. But I thank all of you for making our community a better place.
Mr. Fish. Yes, I want to take just a minute. I'd also like to thank congratulate the volleyball team from Kings Mountain. I don't think people realize how any state championship in any sport is not an easy task for the coaches and the players, and I think they have done a great job. And I also want to thank all of our teachers, our staff throughout the entire district. We're very lucky here in Cleveland County. There's a lot of good things going on in Cleveland County. We're lucky to have the staff and the leadership that we have. If you listen to some of these other districts, all the problems these districts have, we have, I think, minimal problems compared to other districts here in Cleveland County. So I want to thank all of our staff for the job they do. And everybody have a happy, safe Thanksgiving.
Just a few things. I was passed a note to share that not only did they win the state championship, but the Kings Mountain volleyball team had a greater than 4.0 average. So, and to come back from being 2 down like they did, that's amazing. So they are true student athletes. I'd like to thank Ms. Behringer for the treats that she continues to send to the board. That was a very good lemon pound cake we had earlier, so thanks again, Ms. Behringer. And really enjoyed being in, I think I've got the name right, Mr. Savetsky, did I say that right? At Shelby Meadow? Yeah, that's right. I think you get a free 100 if you can spell and say his name. Maybe we can talk to him about that. But again, similar to what Mr. Blanton said, where they're introducing, or maybe Mr. Sperling, we're introducing lots of different CTE courses to our kids. They're doing carpentry, drones. I can't remember everything that he mentioned, but thanks to all those folks that do that. And I tried to sign up for the class, but they wouldn't let me, said I was too old. So with nothing else, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
All in favor, or welcome to Linda.